What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another Friday night. Cool. It's the last show of 2022.
Yep.
So, man, figure we'll do a little recap, talk about some of our favorite memories, or it's just some of the big stories from the past year. Keep it a little casual tonight, but of course, we still got to talk a little bit, about what's going on this week. NFL playoffs going on, NBA is in the swing of things, so a lot of big stories going on right now to talk about. So, um, let's do what we do, man.
Yep. I like that you said NFL playoffs because for a lot of teams, it actually is the playoffs, right?
Yeah,
They got to win to
yeah,
get in. So they're already in that losing you're out mindset or winning you're in mindset. So, yeah,
yeah,
definitely agree
and
with that.
and it's such an interesting time of year, right? Because we have some people that they just done gave up, right? But you have some people that are like, we're out, but we got a chance to play spoiler.
Yep.
And it's always fun to kind of see what some of the upsets might be, unless your team's involved in it. Then those aren't so much fun to watch. But it's
Purple.
kind of fun to see, like, what matchups might cause an upset to happen because somebody took somebody lightly or whatever. So the last 2 weeks of the NFL season are kind of exciting for a different reason.
Well, I'll say one team that did not allow themselves to be upset last night. Dak did his
Well,
best, but it wasn't good enough.
he tried so hard, couldn't quite get the job done, couldn't fail hard enough.
Tennessee was just more bent on underachieving this week. So,
Well, man, I didn't watch a lot of that game last night, much like most of Thursday night games this year. But I did look at one point and saw the score, and I was like, bro, why is this game so close? I mean, Tennessee literally was on, like, what, their third, fourth string quarterback, like their third
somebody,
string running back. I mean,
yeah, somebody picked up off the practice squad somewhere.
yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I think they got that running back off of at the parking lot over at Lowe's or something, like 15 minutes before the game. Like,
They gave him an NIL deal with one of their sponsors and grabbed him from a college real quick. He didn't want to
yeah,
play the
so
bowl game anyway.
yeah, man, kind of crazy when you look at it, man. But kind of thinking back on this year, man, to me there was a lot that happened this year, right? We had a lot of people that we unfortunately lost. We had a lot of big retirements this year. We also had some legal stuff, kind of off the field things that happened involving a couple of athletes. Uh, we also had a lot of improbable wins this year, things that we didn't really expect to see, or teams that kind of traditionally had failed. I also kind of feel like this was the year of the unexpected, right? So for me, a couple things to come to mind is Georgia actually finally getting over the hump, winning a national championship. That's a team that they've been close a couple times, but they've always failed. It's usually to Alabama. So they actually got over the hump against Alabama. Your Atlanta Braves, uh, multiple times they've come really close. They finally got over the hump, won the World Series. And it's like when you start looking at some of these situations, it's kind of funny that this past year, I think a lot of the expectations people had for teams didn't come to fruition, right? It's like the teams that we expected to be garbage, or that we expected to ultimately fail, won championships. The Detroit Lions in the NFL. I mean, we did predict them to win like 7 or 8 games this year, but nobody really expected them to be competing for the playoffs. Not realistically.
Yeah, I didn't think there would be enough for the playoffs, but clearly we didn't understand how the season was going to go.
Yeah.
Um, One other real improbable run was the U.S. men's soccer team actually getting out of the first round of the
Yeah.
tournament because that's a very young team who needs a lot of time to grow.
Yeah.
But they did get some big ties and a big win to get out. So another improbable, I would say, run that something to focus on, something to be proud of if you're to being there on that team, and they're gonna have a bright future, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So it was a lot of things that went on. Was there any like big stories this year that really stood out for you?
Well, one big story that stood out for me was my University of North Carolina Chapel Hill Tar Heels basketball team going
Hmm.
all the way to the national championship game. A lot of people didn't even have them making the tournament.
Yeah.
Hold a lot of haters, especially in the sportscasting world, who put a lot of negativity and bad juju on my team's name.
Yeah.
But we showed them that it's not how things go. I think when you look at the
Yeah.
NBA, we saw some teams like the Memphis Grizzlies, New Orleans Pelicans kind of be better than people thought last year
Hmm.
when they got to the opportunity to get in the playoffs and show everybody who they were. I think that's
Yeah.
great. It shows that some of that youth is starting to get a little experience. I mean, the
Hmm.
thing is, it's hard to see that because you have LeBron who's been here so long, and you've
Yeah.
had guys like Giannis, KD, and things come up and have a full career under the shadow of LeBron.
Hmm.
And now we're getting to that point where some of those other guys are starting to excel, right? Zion
Yeah.
Williamson, we're seeing a lot out of him. Um, we're seeing a lot out of John Morant, Luka Doncic, to name a few.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic, I mean, it's a long list, but a
Yeah.
lot of guys did that. And being a little bit of a homer again, I'm going to go with Denver Nuggets actually making the playoffs with their second and third best player not even playing
Yeah.
last year. I think that's a big story just to show how much Jokic means to that organization. And of course, there's some people going to be mad when I say this one. You're back to back reigning and defending MVP. Very improbable that he would win it 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And Nikola Jokic as well. And there's several other moments in other
Yeah.
sports. We'll get to those. Well, Box, we kind of came out. We started talking about whatever, whatever. But we forgot to let people know who we were.
Well, go ahead and let them know who we are, sir.
Well, sir, we are your interdimensional. And I add a new one every few weeks. Galactical, universal, world, transatlantic, North American, South American, East Asian, undisputed tag team champs of interactive sports talk. And we go by the name of
The play callers. We don't have I don't have the graphic up right now, so I can't do the video for you. Sorry.
we don't need the video. That was
Yeah.
good enough for me right there. So we just had to remind people because it's gangster around these parts. They
Yes,
need to know
sir.
who we
Yeah, I
is.
mean, man. I mean, you talk about Joker, man, and winning the back-to-back MVPs. And to me, it's kind of a crazy story because if you go back the year before, right? Not when he won the first MVP, but the year before that. I think most people would have said he's a really good player, right? But nobody was putting him in the MVP conversation. No one would have even remotely guessed he was going to win one MVP in the next 2 years, let alone two. So the fact that he elevated his game to that point, and obviously a big part of that was, you had your number two and three guys out. And so he had to elevate his game. But, I think sometimes people want to look at that and they want to use it as a way to take away from an accomplishment. But you have to understand that also meant he became the focal point of every opposing defense. And despite being the focal point, he went out there and he dominated on a regular basis to earn those two MVPs. So yeah, I mean, you know, definitely feel you want to point that out and take credit for it, man. It's a big accomplishment for your boy.
Yeah, man. Very excited that he's played to the level he's played to. Um, there isn't a lot that needs to be said about his play. I mean, you put a team on your back, you win the MVP, you basically take them by yourself to the sixth seed last year. You've got Michael Porter Jr. who's been back the last few games. Blew us the last game with poor play in overtime, but he's got to work himself back into play. Jamal Murray's back. He's not playing every game. He's having to load manage because of returning from the injury and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Um, but every game, there's one guy that's out there, and it's your reigning back-to-back MVP, and he's balling again. And I'm not saying he's going to win MVP again because I think the media worlds are not going to give him a third one.
Yeah.
Just like I don't think they're going to give my most improved player in the NFL, Jalen Hurts, the MVP award in the NFL.
So who do you think is actually winning the MVP in the NFL?
So I have a wild theory,
Okay.
and it may not ever come to fruition, but just based on what I hear and the consistent slobbering over this gentleman, I think an outside candidate is Justin Herbert. They are now solidified in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
He has comparable stats
Mm.
to some of the other top guys without his two top receivers until a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He played with injured ribs for a good portion, with injured rib cartilage for a good portion of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Still put up very good stats, and we know the NFL loves a great story, and they
Yeah.
love a guy who hasn't been there but's put up MVP type numbers to finally get there. And
Mm-hmm.
this is an award that is voted on primarily by writers, right,
Yeah.
for the NBA. So
Right.
I mean NFL, excuse me. So this is a
Yeah.
reward that someone who they love, who
Mm.
they have been um, slobbing all over for some time, now
Mm.
has a legitimate case for them to give him that reward. Everyone talks about Hurts. Everyone talks about, well, two is out of the conversation now. But everybody talks about, of course,
Yeah.
Josh Allen. Everybody talks about, of course, Patrick Mahomes. I'm gonna be real. Patrick Mahomes right now is like LeBron James statistically speaking.
Yeah.
He could win the award every year just because of the numbers he puts up.
Right.
But it's not a lifetime achievement award. And this is where some people get a little upset, and this is where they get a little like, blah 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 blah. Mahomes has great seasons, but that's an expectation. That's what the expectation he's already set.
Yeah.
So a guy like Herbert who has had good seasons, but his team is now better, and he's still putting up comparable, not quite as good, but comparable stats.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy the media is going to look at this next couple of weeks. I guarantee you. I don't know if he's going to win, but I guarantee he's a guy that's going to elevate in that conversation. And there's one other guy for me. He won't win it either, but they'll have to put him in the conversation once he reaches 2,000 yards as a receiver, and that's going to be Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And screw you, Howie Steele, for that.
Yeah. Man. So a couple of things that come up there for me. So one, we definitely got to talk about the whole Tua thing here in a few minutes too. Uh, I think he was in that conversation until the concussions kind of came along, and then that knocked him out, both literally
Literally and
and
figuratively.
figuratively. Yes. Um, I agree with you on Mahomes. Stat wise, you could give it to him every year, but they're not going to, because at some point it's just like you just stop giving it to him, and at some point you just stop even considering him for it, right? It's like because you expect these things from him. So he has to actually go out there and exceed his own expectations to really get into that conversation. Josh Allen, I think, was early on in that conversation, possibly even leading that conversation at one point. And then it seems like ever since they beat Kansas City, man, they fell off. He has not played very well here as of late. So I think he's out of that conversation.
But remember, he has the arm injury that he's playing through.
Yeah. Um, well, yeah. I mean, but it's
They'll
convenient how
slide
that
him.
came out.
They'll slide him for that too. So
Yeah. So yeah, when I start looking at like who actually is in that conversation, right? Lamar Jackson was in that conversation earlier this year, but with the injury, he's now out. So when you really start thinking about it, Herbert actually does make a lot of sense. Is a guy who could get it. The issue I have with the MVP award is stop calling it MVP. Just literally start saying best quarterback. Because there are other guys who honestly deserve to be in the conversation for this award, right? Justin Jefferson deserves to be in the conversation for this award. Nick Bosa deserves to be in the conversation for this award. But we all know they're not going to get to a defensive end or a wide receiver, even when they put up crazy numbers. I mean, unless every single quarterback in the league plays horribly, that might be the only chance you really have to get that. Because Cooper Kupp didn't get it last year, did he?
Of course not.
Yeah, I was trying to remember.
He was in a conversation with Mary. Aaron Rodgers got it. And here's the thing: everybody wants.
Oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers won. That's right.
Everybody wants to talk about, Tua, certain people's stats and whatever different points. Aaron Rodgers did not lead the league in passing or touchdowns or have the least interceptions any of the year, either of the 2 years that he won MVP the past 2 years. So that argument does not hold value based on history. So before you start making that argument, people, do your research. I'm gonna give you the Chris Webber. Do your research.
Well, you know what I'm gonna give you is I'm gonna use your own quote here. Aaron Rodgers won the MVP last year was not a MVP award; it was a career achievement award.
Well, I mean,
he did have good numbers. Don't get me wrong, but
I'll say this: without him last year, that team would have been hot garbage. But we've come to find out this year that without a certain wide receiver, first name Devontae, last name Adams, it's a lot harder. Now, they're looking a little bit better now, and they may sneak backdoor into the playoffs, right? They might backdoor their way in.
It might.
I don't think they will, but they're at least in the conversation for the playoffs. So that's going to cause a large amount of slobberization to continue.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he needs that quality number one that he doesn't currently have to be back at that MVP level. But if they get in the playoffs, Stephen A. Smith is probably going to have a heart attack when he sees the bad man back in the playoffs. But I mean, that's what we have to deal with as people who watch sports. Because the thing is, I don't even watch First Take, but you still see Stephen A. clips and people posting them all day. So if you don't watch it, you're gonna see some of this tomfoolery and skullduggery that he's part of. Unfortunately,
not the skullduggery, man.
Yes.
So speaking of skullduggery, man, what are your thoughts on Tua? I mean, obviously, third concussion in what is this now, like 2 months? So I already know you feel like you shouldn't be back on the field. You didn't feel like you should have been back on the field after the second one. So that's not really my question. My question is, what do you think needs to happen? Like, what does the NFL need to do? Or is this even really the NFL's responsibility?
No, it's not the NFL's responsibility. The NFL can't go in and tell a team not to play a guy.
Yeah.
The head coach, the general manager, the owner, those people, the people who should have the best interest, the doctors, the people who should all have the best interest of Tua in mind, should say, you got to sit down, man.
Yeah.
They should have said that after the second concussion. It's not worth the long-term effects.
Yeah.
You're not going to win this year. You've fallen to the point where you're not who you were at the beginning of the year. Let that man get healthy.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do that. You know why they're not going to do that? Because Tua Tagovailoa brings ratings.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
it matters more to them than that man's health and that man's long-term career and him having major CTE down the road because of this.
Yeah, they're more concerned with trying to get into the playoffs right now.
To lose.
Yeah. So my thing is, I agree that it's not the NFL's responsibility to step in and say you can't play. I know that that's kind of a hot topic for a lot of people right now. Everybody's running around saying the league needs to step in. And quite frankly, I don't want the league to step in. Because when I look at the idea of the league being able to step in and say, if you have a certain number of concussions, then you can't play no more. Right. It's only a matter of time before the league takes that freedom and oversteps their boundary. And all of a sudden is now saying, oh, you also can't play if you have more than a certain number of hamstring injuries or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's only a matter of time for the NFL starts to overstep their boundaries because that's what the NFL does. And honestly, I'm not even sure that it's really on the team. I mean, to an extent it is, but you know, it's partially on the player, it's partially on the team. But I think really where we need to be looking at here, and this is where the NFL can step in and do something, is we need to start looking at the way that we're diagnosing and then further evaluating these concussions. Because to me, there is something happening on the medical side. Because as a coach, if a doctor comes to me and says, hey, he's good to go, it's safe for him to play, I want to be able to trust that doctor, a medical professional, is giving me the truth. I'm basing my opinion and my decisions off of that, right? And so if we are finding that we're having more and more situations where doctors are saying it's okay for this guy to go back and it wasn't okay for them to come back, then to me, that's really the problem. And that's where the NFL really needs to turn their attention to is how are we diagnosing and then treating these concussions? That's to me is the real problem.
Well, I would say this in response to that: the last concussion for Tua, for instance, if it's not spotted, the doctors never see him. The doctors did not notice anything different about him, so they didn't review anything with him. He got
Mm-hmm.
taken out of the game because he was doing something with his helmet. He said that he couldn't hear, and they
Mm-hmm.
mistook it for something else, and that's why they ended up taking him out of the game. He says he had no symptoms until after the game.
Yeah.
That's what he says. I think if we're gonna say it's the player's fault at all, I have to dispute that because a player's not gonna say, "Hey, I'm hurt, take me out of the game." They never
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So I think you have to take the player piece out of it. The player's never gonna do that. You have to put the onus on ownership, the medical staff, and the coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
That's who needs to be held responsible when these things happen, because
Yeah.
these players are not going to take themselves out. We didn't do it
Yeah.
in Pee Wee. We didn't do it in middle school, junior high, high school. For those who played in college, you didn't do it in college either. No one did it at any level.
Yeah.
And if we were in the same position, we wouldn't do it, right? So I think it's up to people who are supposed to have a level head, people who are again supposed to be there to protect you and make sure you
Mm-hmm.
make the best long term decisions for you, to take your helmet. Because you remember there was a time where the training staff would go over there and take a helmet. You can't play
Mm-hmm.
without your helmet, and take your helmet from you.
Mm-hmm.
If you were hurt, if you had concussions, if you were limp in certain things, they just take your helmet.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do now? They don't do that anymore. Why?
Yeah.
Why do we have more information and we know that these things could be more dangerous for these guys long term, but we care less about taking it and saying, no, you're not playing today. Be mad if you want, but you're not playing today. I'm going to take it out of your hands.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. To me, if I'm looking at the hierarchy of who's responsible, right? I'm going medical staff first, right? They got to be the first line. They should ultimately be the ones who say no. In the event that the medical staff fails and something doesn't seem right, it's now on the head coach and the organization to make that decision. And if the medical staff has failed you and the coaching staff has failed you, then yeah, you know what? We do need to educate players and go, look, we know this is not how you were brought up. We know this isn't how you were trained. It's not the mentality that you're going to have, but you have to think about your long term health. You have to be an advocate for yourself. So when everyone else fails you, you cannot fail yourself on top of it. But it definitely starts with those first two categories. Because, I mean, especially in the moment, you have a concussion. Guess who the least clear person on the field is at that point?
The person
Right?
with the concussion.
Right. You're asking the least clear person to make a decision. Now, it's one thing if a player goes out there and they're still having symptoms 2 weeks later and they decide to put themselves back in because they got medical clearance. That's why I'm saying players have to be smarter and say, look, I'm not good. I can't do this. But, for that to happen, we also have to create a different culture in the NFL. And it's not just about the players being tough or not being tough. It's about the fact that when guys do say, look, I don't feel healthy, I don't feel like it's safe for me to go out there, they get retaliated against. Those things come back on them negotiation time. Those things come back to them when it comes time to negotiate that free agency contract. So that's the stuff we have to change culture-wise in the league.
But see, that's not a changeable thing. That particular piece is not. I don't care how much we advocate and how much we say this and say that. Unless we are there in those conversations and we're able to record and prove that that was said as part of the deliberations, there's no way to change that. Because if
Yeah.
you go out there and you don't play, you say, "Oh, I had a concussion 2 weeks ago and I still feel foggy." When it comes time for you to sign a free agent deal, or it comes time for you to get an extension, that's going to be brought up
Mm-hmm.
because it is a gladiator sport. I
Yep.
think that for me, my hierarchy is the coaches and ownership with the information they receive from the medical staff. Because this is how I feel about it. The medical staff can say, "I don't think this guy should play." Can he play? Right? Because those are two different questions.
Mm-hmm.
The medical staff can go and say, "Hey, coach, I don't think this guy should play because the symptoms that he's showing, they're not above what he can where he can play, but they're
Mm-hmm.
so close that anything could put him over the top, and I think he should go back out there."
Yeah.
Coach is gonna ask, "Can he go back out there?" He can, but I don't think he should.
Yeah.
The medical professional can't make the final say. So I
Yeah.
can't put them first in the hierarchy. If you can't make the decision, I can't put you first in the hierarchy. Now the coach, I think, is first. I think the general manager and the ownership are after that because they should be checking and saying, "Hey, I've got somebody down that field telling me what's going on with my team.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's hurt, what's happening? Why is he hurt? What's happening? Give us the information." And
Right.
if the coach can't make the correct decision or won't make the correct decision, then ownership needs to make the right decision in the general manager. Um, I don't put the player on the list at all because even in a situation like you said, where it's 2 weeks, he's still feeling foggy, they don't go out there and try to play because they know they're independent contractors at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether you got a 4 year contract, a 5 year contract, the last year of your contract, um, the end of your rookie deal, whatever, you're an independent contractor. So you got to go out there, you got to get yours while you can.
Yeah.
Those coaches and that team need to be held responsible in the aftermath of these situations. I don't think you can go in and have the league say, "Yeah, you have to sit somebody," but I think they need to be held responsible. The problem is everything's collective bargained. This is
Yeah.
something new that's happening, so this is something that's going to have to be taken to the table to be collective bargained in the offseason. Unfortunately, guys like Tua, it may be too late for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really hope that, Tua just goes ahead and sits out the rest of the season because to get three concussions in the time frame that he's had them, it you don't want to mess around and get a fourth. I mean, who knows what kind of already permanent damage has already been done by you getting the three. Don't add to it.
He's going to play after the second one, so nothing's changed for me.
So, kind of switching gears, man. Going back to I said it was kind of a year of unexpected. College basketball. We actually had a really cool story this past year where St. Peter's, one of your favorite teams, actually became the first. What were they? 15 seed. First 15 seed to actually make the Elite Eight. So they had a nice little run. They came up a little short, but they had a nice little improbable run.
They did, man. They were cockstrong.
And so they actually beat a second seeded Kentucky team, a 7 seeded Murray State team, and a 3 seed Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really impressive when you actually think about what it took for them to even get to the Elite Eight.
I have to keep my puns going. They were cock diesel.
Oh man. So yeah. So you also had Becky Hammon became the first WNBA player to win a championship as a coach, and also brought the city of Vegas their first WNBA championship. So another, I guess you could call it an unexpected one because I think people expected her to be successful. I don't think people necessarily expected her to go win a championship in that first season.
Yeah, and I mean, winning a championship is difficult, right? Winning a
Hmm.
championship is difficult in any sport, and you can never really anticipate the true champion, right?
Yeah.
Most of the teams who are in contention, you can say, yeah, that's a team that probably can win, but you can't really, pinpoint who's going to be champion. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was a big moment in the WNBA for sure. My favorite WNBA moment for the year was when the Atlanta Dream drafted Ryan Howard, and then she went on to become the WNBA Rookie of the Year, and she was the Rookie of the Month, I believe, every month and almost every week as well. So consistent dominance, um,
Hmm.
a great pillar building block for my Atlanta Dream, and hope for the future. You have some
Yeah.
franchises who have been very successful. The Mercury, the Sky, the Aces, um, whoever, so forth. But you have other teams like the Dream who just haven't really been that successful since they've uh, entered the WNBA.
Yeah.
Now you have the building blocks. You have a coach in Tanisha Wright who's gotten an extension as well as a general manager. So you have pieces in place. You have people that are going to be there. You've got the number one overall pick last year, rookie of the year,
Hmm.
coming back. Hopefully they'll have a better season with injuries, and we'll
Yeah.
see a lot from that team. But them going from a franchise that not a lot of people talked about to almost making the playoffs until
Yeah.
the end of the year when everything kind of fell apart. Um, Weathering through a lot of injuries, I think for me, that entire situation was a big story for me and something that I hoped was going to happen. I called it was
Hmm.
going to happen, but to actually see it happen was very pleasant.
Yes. So, my personal, you know, underdog story of this season still kind of working itself out right now. But of course, my personal favorite is Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, becoming Mr. Relevant. Playing pretty well. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that one because like I said, that story is still playing out. So hopefully that will be a much better story for our 2023 recap show. So at least that's my personal hope.
Hopefully not.
So man, one thing that I think really happened this year that we have to talk about is what happened in college football. Because we had two things that really happened with college football this year. One wasn't brand new, but I think this year we started to see a lot more of it, which was the transfer portal started to really become a huge factor. And also NIL, which, when you combine those two things together, is really kind of started to change the landscape of college football.
Yeah, I think the thing with the transfer portal is, depending on your team, you've been heavy into that for the last 2 3 years,
Yeah.
and I know that as a Miami Hurricanes football fan, that's
Yeah.
nothing new for us. The transfer portal has been saving us for 2 3 years.
Hmm.
What you've got is the advent of the one-time transfer with no sitting out has
Right.
opened up a whole new world,
It really has.
as well as the extra year for those who were in college during COVID, which I think comes
Hmm.
to the end after this year, because I think most of the players, unless they were red shirts, this would have been their this past year. I think would have been their last year of eligibility, and maybe this coming year to have to double check that. But I know it's either this year or the following year. So I think you have that. You also have, like you said, NIL, and the big thing about NIL is it allows universities to, over the table,
Hmm.
give you the bag.
Yeah.
A video came out today from what's my man, Lindell Johnson. He used to play for USC.
Hmm.
He was saying how he had this nice apartment. He drove a Lexus Q, what was it, E420? I forgot what he said exactly, but he drove a nice Lexus while he was in college.
Hmm.
He said when he got in his apartment, there was a duffel bag full of money sitting on the floor. He didn't know who left it. He never told anybody, but he kept it because possession is 9/10 of the law. So that type of thing, and that was not the only time that he had type of that scenario happen.
Yeah.
He said there was a couple of times where that happened for him. And again, I'm not the guy that's like, oh, See, you should have took that money. It just goes to show it was happening on a broader scale. You want to
Hmm.
punish Reggie Bush like he was the only person on that team that
Yeah.
was getting help.
Yeah. I mean, they really should get Reggie at that Heisman bet, man. That's we all know that was going on. We all know it's been going on for years. It's not anything new. It's like you said, it's just on top now. But yeah, I think the other thing about it, man, is the other shift that's happening in college football because of NIL and because of the ability to transfer without having to sit out is guys are no longer wanting to stick around bad programs, right? Texas A&M had the number one recruiting class last year, proceeded to have a horrible season. And what happened? They had, I think it was like 11 or 12, maybe even more guys than that, who actually transferred out. So,
I bet
you
at least a
know,
couple of them are going to end up in Colorado.
yeah. So, when you have, coaches who lose a team, it's no longer just a matter of, oh, you have to fire the coach and then players maybe want to transfer because they don't like the new coach or they might have to be stuck with somebody for a while unless they want to lose a year. And they don't have to do that no more. People get there and realize you're not who you said you were. They just leave. And I think that I think that's a good thing for college football because I think that it's going to have to make these coaches who like to go out and try to make a lot of promises they can't keep on the recruiting trail. It's gonna keep them honest, and so that makes things a little bit more interesting. And then once you start looking at the NIL stuff, it gets real interesting. Now, I will say this: there was a story that came out a couple weeks ago. We didn't really ever get a chance to talk about it, but I was thrown off by it because they were talking about Drake May, the quarterback for North Carolina, and saying that he was actually offered a $5 million NIL deal to leave North Carolina. What I found interesting about this story was this was not a North Carolina coach telling the story. It was the Pitt coach telling the story. And I'm like, how do you know that this dude got offered $5 million? Were you the ones that offered him $5 million?
That would be my first assumption in a situation. But the other thing too is this stuff travels in circles, right? They all find out.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, they all find out. Like if it's Drake May, they like, okay, well, somebody such and such offered this, and obviously you're never gonna say who the team was.
Hmm.
But this stuff does travel around. It's the same circles. These guys know each other, right?
Yeah.
These coaches know each other. These general managers, these commissioners of these leagues and stuff, they know each other. Or
Yeah.
excuse me, athletic directors. We're talking about college here. Um, and it's funny to me because it's probably not the only offer he's got.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure a lot of these guys have gotten some big time offers.
Colorado's going to get a lot of guys in there. Watch. Colorado's going to kill it on the transfer portal. They are going to kill it.
I mean, hey, they might. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But the thing about it, man, is like you take a team like my Seminoles, right? Last year, 5-7. Year before that, I think we had like 2-3 wins. It was horrible. To this year having 10 wins, and that's not because they went out and recruited a bunch of guys and was able to build them up. They went out and absolutely killed the transfer portal. So we're now at a state where, it used to be in college football, they said you had to give a guy 3-4 years to be able to get his people in and recruit and get a couple of recruiting cycles. But then we also started seeing that universities got impatient and they didn't want to give guys 3, 4, 5 years to turn a program around. So now with the ability to go out and get that transfer portal, you can actually turn a program completely around in like 1 or 2 years now.
Well, you got to have the right blend of players. I still think, even with that, I still think you got to give guys 2-3 years, right? Because here's the thing that you got to realize: unless guys are leaving at a high clip, unless guys are saying, "I'm done with this. I'm not going to be part of this. I don't like the way this is going," they're just leaving. Those same guys are still there. So it's hard to get those guys out unless they want to transfer, right? If that's where they want to play, or they're comfortable with the system and they want to stay. So I still think you have to give guys 2 to 3 years. You got to give them recruiting cycles, because even if you have a monster year in the transfer portal, that's pretty much normally like 1 year, unless you get young guys that are willing to leave their school. You're normally getting juniors and seniors, guys who are saying, I played at the a lower level, non-power 5 or whatever. I need to get myself up in a power 5 school so I can be seen, so I can try to get to the next level, or the CFL or the USFL or the XFL or MLF, so on and so forth. So I think that's what we're seeing now, is guys are more comfortable with saying, my first 2 years I'll go play at Appalachian State, right? Good school, but nowhere near a power 5 school. At this point, I think they should be in the ACC, but that's another story. But a school like that, you go, you learn, then you transfer after your sophomore or junior year. You go to a power 5 school, you step in, you're probably going to play, because you're not going to go somewhere and sit as a junior or senior, right?
Right.
Then you have the opportunity to go to the next level and play, whether that's one of the other leagues or whether that's the NFL. And that's where I think the transfer portal is helpful, because guys can go and learn, get the skills built up, and then if they develop above what their expectations were coming out of high school, they then have that chance to go and be seen on a higher level.
Yep.
And they don't have to graduate to do it. But you can only do it one time without sitting, which I love. So
Yep.
guys can't be habitual team jumpers.
Can't be habitual line steppers and team jumpers.
Exactly, sir. No habitual team jumpers.
I feel you on that. So another big story, sticking with the college theme, but moving over to women's college basketball, was Dawn Staley actually leading South Carolina to their second championship in 5 years.
Dawn
And
Staley and Aaliyah Boston.
yes, and handing Coach Gino his first loss in 12 title games. That's a big accomplishment.
Take that, Gino. Take that.
You know what I'm saying? So when you literally have won 11 of 11 title games, right? And somebody can come along and knock you off, you got to give a lot of respect to that.
Yep. And then another former WNBA star in the coaching ranks, making big things happen. That's very important, because that is simply what we have going on now.
Yeah.
We have a lot of these ladies that are going into the coaching ranks that played in the WNBA. They're showing you that basketball IQ is there, and they're starting to dominate on the women's side.
Yeah.
The question is, when are we going to stop playing and put them on the men's side? That's the question.
Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, because let's be honest, we don't really have a lot of assistants. Unlike the NFL, where like you got 5-6 guys at any given time that you're always talking about being head coaches. You don't really hear that with the NBA as much. Like there's usually a couple guys' names will kind of float around out there. But I think that when you're looking at basketball, you have a much better opportunity to possibly get a female head coach in the NBA because of that fact. And, as you have some of these ladies have continued success over in the WNBA, I think it's only a matter of time before an NBA team is going to try to come along and say, hey, why don't you come coach us?
Yeah. We'll see. I hope. But we'll
So,
see.
so you'll love this transition. So we talk about, beating established teams and coaches. And we talk about, people getting paid. And so that literally perfectly leads into the next topic of conversation I wanted to talk about. And that was the formation of the Live Golf. This was a situation, man, where, I mean, I know we don't really talk golf or anything on here too much, but it's just an interesting story because if you had said to anybody 5 years ago, another league's going to come along and knock the PGA off, no one would have believed it because it was such a solid relationship there. It seemed right. It was just such a stalwart in the golf that you could never imagine somebody taking the PGA's place. But that man, I don't know who their PR people are, but they handled that situation so poorly.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts you want to share on that one?
I'm just gonna say we're gonna have to see how this live golf thing permeates. Um, because PGA is taking this tough stand where you can't play in both, and so we're gonna have to see what guys are gonna cross that line, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's like AEW and WWE. We got to see who's gonna go be elite, or who's gonna go live, and then with because you need a little bit of time to really see what happens. But I love the competition. I love that someone else is stepping up and saying, "Let's see what we got," versus the status quo.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's to me, competition is always a good thing, right? In any sport, when you have two sides that are both actually bringing quality to the table, it's going to make things better. So now what has to happen is the PGA has to kind of accept what's happened, and they have to change their approach because what they're doing right now is not working.
You have to pay their guys better and better benefits, right? They have to make concessions now because there's guys that can use this as a bargaining tool, if nothing else. Um, Speaking of those situations,
Hmm.
love to slide. I want to bounce back to tennis in a minute. Actually, I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and talk tennis real quick. The
Okay.
only moment in tennis that really matters to me, and there were other moments. There were other players that retired this year, and shout out to them as well. But the unparalleled, undisputed queen of tennis retired this year.
Yep.
Of course, that would be your favorite female tennis player, and probably your favorite tennis player, period, in mine, Serena Williams.
Yep.
And she went out fighting. She didn't make a statement and then slide away in the middle of the night. She told us beforehand, hey, this is probably going to be it. So she gave us a
Hmm.
chance to um, view her greatness one last time. Didn't win. It's okay. You don't always go out on top, but she's won a lot in her career. And if you talk to me about the goats of tennis and you don't include Serena Williams, our conversation is over at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Serena Williams is just a whole different thing, right? It's like when you look at everything she accomplished, and we talked about it, when this happened, it's not just that she is the greatest female tennis player. You could honestly argue that she's the greatest tennis player, period. You have a strong argument for putting her in the conversation to say she's the greatest female athlete of all time. I mean, there's certainly some other people that could be in that conversation as well, but she's in those kind of conversations. Just a amazing career, man.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't something we need to spend a lot of time on, but we can't do it in a year and not talk about the indomitable Serena Williams. Um, Couple of
Well,
we
there
don't
there was
talk.
there was one other tennis retirement that we
There
would at
was,
least have to mention, which is Roger Federer.
yeah, but I'll be honest with you. I love Roger Federer, great player, but I wanted to give this moment to Serena.
Yeah, I just wanted to just give him a quick acknowledgement. That's
I was
it.
gonna come back to Federer in five
Yeah.
minutes or so after
Okay.
something else. I just wanted Serena to have her moment
Okay.
because she deserves that. Goat
Okay.
Williams. Everybody want to throw around Goat Williams. I see y'all talking about Goat Williams. But yeah, shout out to Roger Federer as well. I was gonna slide back to that. I was gonna circle back. But so we have this thing called professional wrestling.
Hmm.
Some people care about it, like myself. Some people don't, like others. Some people are more casual. I'm not gonna try to say where you or anyone else falls because that's not my decision to make. I don't need to make that call. But for me, a couple of great moments happened. In WWE, The moment of the year for me was WrestleMania when, and if you're a wrestling fan, you'll know what this means. When you heard the dun, 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 wrestling has more than one royal family. That's exactly what it sounds like. So listen to it. But all jokes aside, Cody going back to WWE, man, amazing moment. Amazing moment. And the promo that he cut the next night on Raw gives me chills when I think about it. This is a guy whose dad, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes,
Hmm.
never was the WWE champion, and he cut this amazing promo talking about how he always wanted to win it and just give it to his dad. He can no longer do that. I've lost my dad, so I understand like there's things that you wanted to accomplish that you couldn't for that person when they were there,
Yeah.
but you still want to accomplish them. And for him to take that ferocity, that like realness, and put that in a scathing promo was amazing for me, man. And that was like there were other great moments in WWE. Another one, of course, was the solidification of the bloodline as the guys in WWE. Right,
Hmm.
Roman Reigns becoming the tribal chief, you know, has to be acknowledged. Uh, Universal Undisputed Tag Champion. You got the WWE Universal Tag Team Champions with him. Um, Now it has Sami Zayn. They've added Solo Sikoa, the Usos' younger brother, as well as the wise man Paul Heyman. So a great, just like collection of talent, and they've been used greatly as like the bad guys. There's other bad guys, but they've been like the bad guy group,
Hmm.
and it's just been great for programming and great to watch. I
Yeah.
know I stole like two of the big ones, but was there anything that happened that you want to talk about?
I mean, in terms of wrestling, man, I think I think those probably were like the two like big stories that kind of happened. Outside of obviously the whole Vince McMahon thing.
Yes.
For me that was a really big shift because we were just talking about the importance of competition, right? And AEW puts on a very quality product, but they haven't managed to capture the casual fan, right? To be able to really bring those ratings in, to pull in those big numbers, to make it look like the old Monday Night Wars between Raw and Nitro, right? And so what we kind of had was AEW putting on a great product that not a lot of people were watching, and WWE putting on a subpar product because Vince McMahon. So now that Vince is out, Triple H is there, we've seen the WWE product improve greatly. And, my assumption is based on what we've seen at AEW, I think this will inspire them to take it even to another level, to continue to get even better. And when you got these two organizations both trying to one up each other and trying to do better, I think as fans we win.
And I'll also say for WWE, there's one moment that's going to happen actually tonight that's big. It includes another moment for me. So tonight we're going to have the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, and Sammy Uso, feeling all Usi and everything. They're going to take on the team of another great moment, Kevin Owens going back to being the prize fighter, the old school Kevin Owens.
Hmm.
Not this weirdo crybaby, whatever they had turned him into.
Right.
And teaming with Kevin Owens, first match this year. Was it 20 years in a row now that he's had a match on SmackDown?
Hmm.
John Cena. Hate it or love it, that's legendary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be an interesting one to see. We all know that it's really just to kind of push this story forward of what's gonna happen next with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. But I mean, look, man, that's one of the hottest storylines of wrestling right now. So
Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens in the bloodline.
yeah. So it's getting a little spicy out there. You know what I'm saying?
And Cody may be back in time for the Royal Rumble. Just saying. Just saying.
I mean,
Uh,
look, you know what the rumors are, and I I hope they're true. That if they can't get The Rock for WrestleMania, because we know they would love to have The Rock versus Roman Reigns. But if that doesn't happen, then the rumors are they may actually put Cody in that spot, and that Cody might be the one to actually take the belt off of Roman Reigns.
So you said the important word, the belt, not the belts, the
Yeah.
belt. There's only
Well,
one he wants.
technically speaking, I mean, obviously they could change it, but technically speaking, he is the unified champion. So they're technically, even though there are two physical belts, they are basically calling it one belt.
Well, they're actually calling it the WWE Universal Undisputed Championship. So
Yeah,
they're still recognizing it as two belts, just that he has them both now.
yeah.
The most prominent rumor is Cody Rhodes coming back, winning the Royal Rumble, which gives you a shot at one of the belts. Him taking the WWE Championship off of Roman Reigns and going to either the previous version of the Winged Eagle or updated version of the Winged Eagle. Which, by the way, you want to get my money, WWE? You do that, and we throwing $300-400 at you. So you do that. You want my money? We'll make it work. But on over on the AEW side, real quick, a couple of big moments for me. The biggest was the Blackpool Combat Club.
Mm,
That's at one point Brian Danielson, excuse me, got to get his real name, not his WWE name. So Brian Danielson, um, John Moxley,
mm,
and young guy Willie Yuta, and Brian Danielson was out, so they brought in the Swiss Cyborg. You might know him as Cesaro, but he's now known as Claudio Castagnoli, his real name, because of
mm-hmm.
course you can't take WWE trademarks.
Right.
Um, Formidable team. At one point, Moxley was the world champ, AEW. Willa Yuta was the Ring of Honor pure champion, which he is again. And Claudio Castagnoli was the Ring of Honor world champion, which he is again. So Claudio actually winning the big one. That's important too, because they never would give him that in WWE. They sit him there, they position him for you to believe it, and then they rip the rug out from under us and say "psych" every time. But AEW pulled the they pulled the trigger on that. Another big moment for those who watch AEW was the return of the devil himself, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF.
Yep.
Very hated wrestler. I love to hate him because he thinks he's better than you and you know it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great moment. And then also FTR, Wardlow at the time, Samoa Joe, and Sean Spears, who you
Mm-hmm.
might have known as the Perfect 10 in WWE. He's had some personal issues. Mom passed away, some depression and stuff he was dealing with, but he was able to come do a show, reunite with his guys for a night. So that was really cool. There's a lot of other great moments. CM Punk winning the championship, even though that went left, but coming back and winning the championship. That was another great moment. So a lot of great moments in AEW as well, and a lot of great moments coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited that they're both thriving in their own way. AEW doesn't have enough programming on to compete with WWE, but they were killing them when they were both on Wednesday night against each other.
Yeah.
Dynamite against NXT, Dynamite was killing them.
Mm-hmm.
We've only got 1 other hour program outside that's actually on TV, and the other stuff is on like YouTube. So they can't compete there with the numbers, but the buzz, the merchandise. I'm seeing a lot more AEW stuff than I am WWE stuff, unless it's older stuff now. So
Yeah.
yeah, some great moments just for me and those two sports, man. Two organizations that I like to watch and I enjoy. So just wanted to throw those out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much took the couple that I would have talked about there as well. But yeah, it's very interesting just to kind of see like the way that they're coming up from the things they're doing. So definitely hope they continue to grow and get better. And we'll see what the future holds in 2023 for both companies.
I can't forget, Paige is back. She's going by Soraya now. Yes. I like Paige. I like Paige very much.
We know all about your well, I know all about your page love. I started to use a different. I started to use a different word, but We're keeping it family friendly.
Paige is one of my favorites.
So couple other stories, man. We'll touch on real quick, and then I do want to at least run through this week's playoff scenarios for the NFL. So Aaron Judge breaking Roger Maris's record, huge moment in baseball this year. Also has some big retirements in addition to the ones we already talked about. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head right now. I know Ben Roethlisberger retired. Right now, it's like my brain is like going.
We got a big announcement that J.J. Watt will be retiring after this year.
Yep, J.J. Watt's retiring.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other ones I'm trying to think of right now, and my brain is freezing up. Can you think of who else?
Let me look that up because I don't remember off the top of my head.
I had them, and then they just like kind of went away on me.
I don't remember them off the top of my head, to be honest. But that's why we have the internet.
Yes, it is. Oh, Coach K. That's the other one I was trying to think of.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of a big one, right? Just one of the most winning coaches in men's basketball history.
Well, I like to talk about that one because there was a team who retired him in the regular season and ended his playoff run before he won a championship, and that would be that same underdog team, UNC Tar Heels. Don't forget, Tom Brady did retire. He ended up coming back, but he did retire.
I'm gonna need you to put quotation marks around that one.
He did retire. He just unretired. He Brett Favre he just didn't take as long. Albert Pujols did retire after last season. Snowboarder Shaun White. Of course, in the WNBA, Sue Bird and Sylvia Fowles.
Oh, Sue Bird, yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah, two living legends. They both should be head coaches somewhere in the next couple of years. Of course, you mentioned Coach K.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Wright retired from Villanova, so we got to talk about him. This one we don't talk a lot about the NHL, but Zdeno Chara, a 24-year veteran of the NHL. He won a Stanley Cup with them. He played for quite a while, but 6-time All-Star as well. Lionel Messi retired. From the World Cup, I'll say.
Yeah.
Not overall, but from the World Cup.
Yeah.
So those were some of the ones that did, and there's a couple more if you'd like to go to them, but I think we kind of, covered what we needed to.
Yeah. That was most of the big ones there. So, and of course, man, we've kind of talked about some of the losses that we had this year. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. A big one was obviously Bill Russell. Just this past week, Pele, passed away. One of the greatest, some people even feel maybe the greatest soccer player of all time.
Yep.
There was the Dwayne Haskins situation at the beginning of the year. The 3 Virginia players who were shot and killed. Mm-hmm. So we've had a lot of tragedy this year as well. So not trying to leave anybody out. There are more names to put on that list.
I have to throw in. And I don't care how anyone feels about me throwing it in, but Jason David Frank was a big loss. He did do some MMA fighting, but mainly known as Power Ranger. But very important to pop culture.
Yeah,
a lot of us growing up that did watch Power Rangers. So
yeah. And then of course on the announcing side, we can't not mention Vince Scully and John Madden.
Right. Or Betty White. Cannot not mention.
Yeah.
Betty White.
Yeah. I mean Betty White. I mean that has nothing to do with sports, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean Betty White had such an impact that Justin Jefferson literally had custom Betty White cleats made.
Yep.
So So yeah, man. Some unfortunate losses that we had to endure, but overall, I think you would agree, man. This was a good year in sports. A lot of feel good stories, a lot of improbable things that kind of happened. Um, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. I know a lot of people were happy for Matthew Stafford. Personally, screw Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Um,
That was definitely improbable because Matthew. If you told me Matthew Stafford was going to win the Super Bowl, I'm like, bro.
that's the approach I'm taking on it. I don't care. I'll be that angry 49ers fan.
I'd have been like, you've been hanging out with Rick James.
Charlie Murphy.
Maybe
So
not.
so real quick, man, I want to run through some of the playoff scenarios for people. So in the AFC, the Bills have clinched. They have also clinched the AFC East division title. The Chiefs have clinched as well as having clinched the West. The Ravens, Bengals, and Chargers have also clinched playoff berths, but have not clinched their divisions, which the Chargers can't do. So Buffalo can actually clinch home field advantage if they win and KC loses. The Bengals can actually clinch the AFC North if they win and Baltimore loses or ties, or if Cincinnati loses and Baltimore loses, or Cincinnati ties and Baltimore loses. The Dolphins actually can clinch a playoff berth this week with a win and a Jets loss. So that's a possibility for them. Over in the NFC, the Vikings have clinched the NFC North title already. The 49ers have clinched the NFC West title. And the Cowboys and the Eagles have both clinched playoff berths. Of course, the Eagles are currently the number 1 seed and can actually clinch that division title with a win or a Dallas loss. And a win would also give Philly the number 1 seed in the NFC this year. So,
And then I could literally say, we're the ones and y'all the twos.
well, you would need for Minnesota to lose and 49ers to win to say that we're the twos.
You're all the twos. If you're not the
Because
ones, you're the twos.
yeah,
I don't care.
because
You
technically
could be
right now we're
three,
the
four,
threes.
five. You're twos. You're not ones. You're twos. You're not
Uh,
ones.
so now you got the Giants. They can clinch a playoff berth with a win.
Winning their
So
game.
so they win, they're in. There's a couple other scenarios for them that get really complicated sounding. So we're gonna save those for week 18 should the Giants lose this week. We'll talk about those later on. So obviously we're going to talk about Philly clinching. Either they win or Dallas loses. Will clinch the East.
Well,
And
win because Dallas already won.
oh yeah, that is true. Dallas did play last night, so yes. So you have to win to clinch.
But
And
win,
then
that was the scenario all the way.
so Tampa, if they win, will clinch the NFC South division. They got Carolina this week, so Carolina needs to win to stay alive in that hunt. And then the Commanders would actually need to win, have Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay lose, or Green Bay tie, in order to clinch a playoff spot. So, good luck, Washington. Good luck.
Definitely Washington is going to need to win and get some help. But the first thing is they need to win.
Yeah. I do just want to point out that stat I mentioned previously, that outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, who had a bye the week after they played the 49ers, every 49ers opponent this year has lost the following week. So not a good omen for the Commanders.
The Commanders are going to have to buck that trend in order to stay alive, and having to stay alive makes a big difference.
Yes. Well, I mean, it does depend on what everybody else does because, last week, no one wanted to clinch a wild card spot in the NFC. The Seahawks lost, the Lions lost, the Commanders lost, the Giants lost. They all lost. They were all hot garbage.
And the Commanders do play the Browns. We had a good week last week, but they've been the epitome of like a hot mess this season. So, you know.
All right, so do you want to run through our picks real quick before we wrap up?
Let's do it, man.
All right, we'll go. We'll just go rapid fire on these.
Yes,
Cardinals at Falcons.
Falcons.
Yeah, I'm going Falcons also. Bears at the Lions.
Lions, Tigers, Bears. Oh my, Lions.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Lions on this one as well. Jags at Texans. Texans been playing tough. I'm going Jags.
Definitely Jags.
Broncos at the Chiefs. Chiefs.
Definitely Chiefs.
The Dolphins at the Patriots.
I am going to go the Brissett Dolphins. Spin up, baby. Anybody can throw those 5-yard slants to take it 75 yards. Let's go.
I think I'm going to go Dolphins on this one as well.
Yeah.
Colts at the Giants.
The New York Football Giants.
Yeah, they've been slipping, but I think they'll get this one.
They'll limp it to a win.
The Saints at the Eagles. Yeah.
Say more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for the Saints because I want to at least have an opportunity maybe to get that 1 seed, but I'm picking the Eagles because I'm not stupid.
And remember this. The worse the Eagles are, the better our other first-round pick is. Extra motivation.
Yeah. The Eagles have motivation to win this week because losing to the Saints actually screws you twice.
Yes.
Panthers at the Bucks.
I'm going with the hometown team on this one. The Carolina Panthers.
I'm actually going Panthers on this one too. I just don't believe in this Bucks team right now. Got the Browns at the Commanders.
Commanders.
I'm going Browns. 49ers at the Jarrett Stidham-led Raiders.
I was going to the 49ers before that. Nothing changed.
Yeah. It's maybe a couple extra touchdowns at this point. It's the only difference. Jets at the Seahawks.
I'm going to go Jets, Jets, because Mike who is back.
Mike, why?
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm going Jets on this one. Vikings at the Packers.
I'm going to go Skull on this one.
I'm going Packers. I think they're getting hot at the right time. Minnesota's been playing with fire. I think this is the week it catches them.
Hey, you may always pack a little fudge, but I'm going with the Vikings.
Got the Rams at the Chargers.
Chargers.
Yeah, even though the Chargers wrapped up a playoff spot, they're gonna still beat the Rams.
The Chargers could start me and you at wide receiver and win this game.
This is the battle for LA. Which still just feels weird because I still haven't got used to the Chargers being in LA yet. Got the Steelers at the Ravens.
I'm gonna go Ravens. They got a lot to play for, but Steelers give them a battle on Sunday Night Football. This was a good flex in by the league. Shout out to them for making a good decision.
Yeah, the Steelers, man, I just don't think they're gonna get enough going on offense. It's gonna be the problem for them. So I'm gonna go Ravens in an ugly one. And then on Monday night, we got the Bills at the Bengals.
I'm going to go Bengals with the upset because I believe the Bills are favored.
I'm not sure who is favored, but I'm going to go Bengals at home.
There you have it.
And then, do we have a Thursday game for Week 18? We don't know who's playing in Week 18 yet, do we? Yeah, there is no Thursday game.
Shouldn't be a Thursday game.
So we do not know. Well, we know who's playing in Week 18, but we don't know what the times are going to be yet. So, but yeah, there's no Thursday game. So
yeah, because they're going to try to,
Oh yeah. There's a fairly decent chance that you and I will probably not get a chance to see our teams play in Week 18 because
I'll see my team play.
because we may not be in highly desirable. Well, I'm saying just like if you just turned on your TV, like
Well, the thing
there's
is,
obviously other ways to watch it.
the thing is, the Giants and the Commanders need wins. Well, the Commanders definitely, depending on how what happens this week, the Giants maybe as well need wins to get into the playoffs. So if the Giants wrap up this week, you're gonna see like backups versus backups next week.
Yeah,
The Giants versus Eagles. So I probably won't even watch the game. I'll probably find something else to watch,
yeah,
or I might tune in. Just so I can sing "Fly Eagles Fly" like 5 times.
yeah.
But yeah, the Commanders and the Cowboys you actually might see because the Commanders are going to need to win that game to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, that game could actually I could see going in prime
Seahawks,
time.
Seahawks and Rams.
And then what I'm thinking that they may end up doing is I'm thinking they're going to probably look at doing something with the 49ers and the Vikings, where they're going to try to put one of those teams in a position where they'll play at different times, or they'll play at the exact same time to make it very difficult for them to know like how the other team is doing.
Yeah, so you're saying Vikings this week losing because you want to be able to get that number 2 seed, which I get it.
Well,
I just
I'm just thinking that Green Bay's going to beat them. I mean, but yes, I do want them to lose, so I
I
can
don't
get the
trust
two
Green
seed.
Bay. I don't trust Green Bay to win the game. I trust them to put up good fantasy stats now, but I don't trust them to win the game.
Yeah, I just had that feeling, man. You know,
Game of the week.
yeah.
Two
So
games that could be game of the week. Ravens and the Bengals, Lions and the Packers. Those 2 games could be games of the week.
yeah, we'll see. So yeah, one other thing I do want to just throw out real quick before we close this out. The other big news that came out this past week: YouTube TV is going to officially be the home of the NFL Sunday Ticket next year. And
DirecTV,
why
you're gonna be in trouble.
And while the pricing has not been announced, there is a rumor that is floating around that they are going to actually have packages available for people like myself who mostly want to watch their own team play and don't want to go and spend like $400 to be able to watch every team in the league. So, pretty exciting stuff.
We'll see what they do.
So,
But
so we'll see, man.
DirecTV, your overpriced sales, oh yeah, you're out of here, buddy. You're definitely gonna lose a large portion of your fans and your subscribers next year. Take that.
Take that, take that, take that. Play callers.
Deserve to.
Look, we're not saying bad boys. We doing take that. Play callers. Well, man. Final thoughts. I just want to say, as we close out the year, really appreciate everyone who has tuned in to the show over the past year. I mean, really since the beginning, but especially this past year. Really appreciate all the love, all the support. The show, our channel has grown by a lot in the past year, and we can't do that without the love and support of all the people who tune into the show and interact with us and get up in the chat and everything else all the time. So that's how I want to close out the year, man. It's just a note of appreciation for everyone who actually tunes in, whether you catch us live or on replay.
Yeah, definitely echo that. Also want to say, gonna be more. If you are not part of our Facebook page or our community page on YouTube, you might want to check that out. We're gonna get more interactive next year. So
Yeah.
you're gonna tell us what you want to hear about, and we're gonna talk about it. If that's baseball, we're gonna talk baseball. If that's MMA, we're gonna talk MMA. If that's ice hockey, we're gonna talk ice hockey. If it's lacrosse, we're gonna talk lacrosse. You're gonna tell us what you want to talk about, and that's what we're gonna talk about.
Billy V says Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Billy. And
Definitely, Billy
and Big Shot Rob says Gamecock Nation.
Oh, Rob.
So I don't know if Rob is just catching up and maybe it's back when we were talking about South Carolina basketball or what, but all good. Appreciate you tuning in, Rob and Billy. So
Yes, sir.
we will see y'all in 2023 next Friday night. New year, same time. Holla at y'all.
7:30.
PM.
7:30 EST 7:30. Holla at your boys.
Holla.